send you leads?
Well, how they actually have events. So their part of their deliverable to their customer is they have continuing education that they offer for their staff, as well as developmental education for the doctors and some clinical. So they get together with their doctors 20 to 30 times per year. So I am as sponsor of that group, and I have I'm an exhibitor, and so I'm very actively involved with them. And they have over 400 practices that they work with. So
Wow,
that's
that's
been
great.
a really nice alignment.
Yeah, I
Um,
would say so. That's wonderful.
hmm
So, what would you say has been your biggest struggle?
with the dental niche,
Well, growing your business, keeping it all together, whatever. I mean, you get up,
yeah.
you have the same 24 hours we all do. So, what would you say has been your biggest struggle with it all?
Okay, so from the beginning, I would probably say my biggest struggle is the control that I have, and my inability to let go. And with that comes hiring people. So, in the beginning, like you talked about earlier, all there is you. You're the accountant, you're the housekeeper, you're the salesperson, you're the doer. And so you get used to doing everything yourself and, doing it a certain way. And it's that's so limiting to what you can accomplish, and it's hard to grow. And so it took me a while to get over the belief that if I hire somebody, then I can allow myself to do other things, and you know that way they're doing things that I shouldn't be doing. And so it's a catch-22 though, because when you hire somebody, you don't always have the money to hire somebody. But it when I finally and it was one of the groups that I belonged to that they were like, you have to do this. When they finally, they just all kept telling me this, and I thought, all right, I need to take this plunge. And it was like I think when I think back on that, that's one of the things that I wish I would have done so much sooner.
Well, it's interesting because I teach a lot on delegation. And I always say that delegation is not do you do it like I do, it's do you do it well enough. And I always use the example of my kids, and telling them to make their beds and clean their room. And no, they didn't make the bed the way I wanted it done, but it was their bed and it was their room. So, if they could live like that and they could sleep in that bed, that was okay with me. And in feeding our animals, I always took great care. I put the dog food, I mixed it perfectly. I had a certain amount and I gave them that task to do. And they just dumped everything together. And guess what? The dogs ate it anyway. So,
And they lived.
so, so, it is, but it's tough when you believe your way is the only way. So it is
Yeah.
true. So what would you say that if you look back at this whole 19-year career, what would you have done differently?
Well, first off, I guess you probably know I would have hired an assistant from the start. Um, I also would have been involved in some type of coaching group because I realized that, and this is how I met you, Gail, is through a coaching group, a mastermind group, and that's where they told me I needed to hire an assistant. And I've learned a lot by belonging to those groups, and I've been in many different ones, and I'm always in one because it's so much easier when somebody else can enlighten you versus you having to learn the hard way. So I probably would have started off by getting myself aligned with that, which I didn't do for, I don't know, maybe the first 10 years or so. So
Well,
that's something.
though, Kathy, if you looked at that, I'm not sure in the beginning even that maybe that was the best thing for you to do, although it certainly couldn't have hurt. But you almost needed those first couple of years, not 10 years, but you certainly needed the first couple years and at least the first 6 months to 12 months to figure out what am I doing and why am I doing it and is there someone else that can do it for me, because you don't know what you don't know when you first go into business. I mean,
Yeah.
at least you had worked for a company. I had never worked for anybody. I mean, I had always created my own jobs,
Wow.
worked in companies. Yeah, I mean, when I was 13, I started selling Avon cosmetics door to door. At 14, I went to work in a radio station, but created the job that I wanted. And at 15, I worked in a summer camp, another job I created where I directed the dance and the drama and the music. And 16, I mean, and 17, I went off to college and created my own jobs where I went to college. And then when I graduated, I was in my first business at 21. So I never
Amazing.
worked for anybody. So although I did know what to do and I did have certain systems, I was so amazed, Kathy, when I found out when you worked for a company, you had paid vacations, you had benefits.
Right.
When you went to a conference, they paid for it. I mean, I had always paid for everything myself.
Mm.
So there was a lot that I had to learn. And the interesting thing was I think I was in business 2 weeks when I was hit with a cease and desist order, which I did not even know what that meant. I had to go and hire an attorney because I didn't have one. And I mean, it was a whole process. So I think you don't know what you don't know. But uh,
Absolutely.
I agree that probably 10 years was a long time to wait. I will
Hmm.
say that.
Hmm.
So what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about starting their own business?
Well, a good book I just read, I don't know if you've read it or heard about it, is called Start With Why by
Huh.
Simon Sinek.
Uh-huh.
And what it teaches is that you need to have a great why that people can identify with. Like everybody thinks in terms of the what. What do we do? And that's really how you convey your message. But if you can work to convey the why and people can align with it, it works much better. So the types of companies he references in the book is Apple and Southwest Airlines. And so if you think of in terms of those companies, you know what they're about, you know their why, whether you believe in them or not. And it's really not what you do, it's why you do it. And so that reading that book, it was like, yeah, it makes so much sense because he says when you can convey the why, then you reach people more on an emotional level. And it's part of that too. What I'm working on too is working into my messaging to work on that portion of it because it's so important. And the other thing I would say is to not be afraid and to just do it. Step out of your comfort zone because that's where real changes happen. And there's a lot of people who will talk about having their own business, but then they'll say they're afraid that they won't make any money. They don't want to take the risk. And I look at it this way: if you try it and it fails, you can always get a job, right?
And that's true, although some people say no, you can't. But anyway, let's tell people how to get a hold of you in case they want to get in touch with you for marketing or they know some dentists or
Yeah,
whatever it
sure.
happens to be. How is the best place to get you and give us your website?
Website is creativeedgemarketing.com, and it's spelled CreativeEdge marketing.com. I thought I'd be clever by only including one E in that, so it's spelled Creative Edge. But I learned that was not a good way to go because everybody puts two E's in it. But hey, live and learn. Too late now. And my phone number is 440-878-0575. Those are probably
So
the best ways.
fantastic. So let's give them your phone number one more time.
440-878-0575.
Okay, and her website is Creative Edge Marketing with one E. So you can get a hold of her. She is a great, great marketer, and I would strongly suggest you be in touch with her. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being with
Gail. It was
us,
such a
Kathy.
pleasure.
And we'll look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.